To factor trinomials, that's what this is a trinomial. We look for greatest common factor first, and there's no greatest common factor because there's a 1 in front of the x and there's no x with the 20. So we have to use another method, and this method is what I call the riddle method. And what we want to do is find two numbers that multiply to give us 20. So for example, 5 and 4, -5, -4. And then when you add those numbers up, I get 9, I get -9. And when you find this to be the middle number, you found your factor. So the 5 and the 4 give us the 9. So my answer is x plus 5 and x plus 4. So we're looking for two numbers that multiply to give us 20. That's the first column. And when you add them up, we're looking for them to add to that middle term. So let's do the same thing over here. So if I want two numbers that multiply to give me 12, so numbers like 6 and 2, 4 and 3. And 6 and 2 gives me 8, 4 and 3 give me 7. Now I'm looking for a -8. So these are all positive. So if I go a -6 and a -2, when I add them up, I get a -8. Once I get that middle term, these two are our answers. So x minus 6 and x minus 2. And so that's factoring a trinomial. So we're going to do this again. So I'm looking at this -15. So now I want two numbers to give me -15. Well, -3 and 5 give me -15. +3 and a -5. And when I add, I get 2. When I add, I get a -2. I'm looking for this 2. Well, this happens to be the correct factors. So now I have x minus 3 and x plus 5. So we're just looking at what numbers multiply to give us this last number, but at the same time add up to the middle number. Once again, let's do the same method here. So if I look at -18, I'm looking for -18. What two numbers? So a -9 and 2, a +9 and a -2. When I add, I get -7. Here I get 7. And I'm looking for a -7, so this happens to be my answer. So x minus 9 is one factor, and x plus 2 is my other factor. Now, just like before, solving, all that means is once we get our factors, we make it equal to 0. So in this problem, I have to make it equal to 0. So I'm going to have to move the 27 over to get it equal to 0. So I'm going to get x squared plus 6x, and when I move it over, it becomes a -27, and it equals 0. Once we get it equals 0, I have to factor. So I'm looking for two numbers that give me a -27 and add up to a +6. So let's think about numbers that give us -27. 9 and -3 give me a -27. When I add them up, I get 6. So here are my factors. So it's going to be x plus 9 and x minus 3. Now, in solving, we make each factor, I'm going to do this one in blue, equal to 0 and solve. So x plus 9 equals 0. So that means x equals a -9. And then x minus 3 equals 0. And so x equals 3. So my answers when solving are -9 and 3. -9 and 3.